世释迦牟尼佛，那么观世音菩萨，那么大势至菩萨，那么阿弥陀佛。Respected Dharma masters, fellow practitioners, and guests, Amitofu. Today's talk is going to be at the heart of Buddhist practice, and that is various forms of Nianfo recitation. Oftentimes you will hear us speak the most important thing is the Nianfo, the Buddha's name, and to constantly be mindful of the Buddha's name, and to constantly recite the Buddha's name in your mind, aloud, and in your heart. Well, there are some practical methods that I would like to discuss. How does one do that? How does one recite the Nianfo? How does one call Amitofo, Namo Amitofo? And what tools may we use if we have them available to us? Firstly, and most importantly, you simply have your mind and your speech. If you practice, you can do the full version or just the name. There are different melodies that one may chant the Nianfo, and it is up to you, or you may create your own melodies. Traditionally, if one were to sit and chant Namo Amitofo, it would sound something like, well, it would sound like this. Namo Amitofo, Namo Amitofo, Namo Amitofo, Namo Amitofo, Namo Amitofo, and so on. If one were simply to chant Amitofo, 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 Amitofo. And in that way you can constantly chant. Now, if you have access, or if it is a walking recitation, which we'll get into the different types, but just now say we're seated and you wish to make use of the, in the West called a dharma fish, the muyu. It makes this beautiful sound. So for the full recitation, Namo Amitofo, Namo Amitofo, Namo Amitofo, Namo Amitofo, Namo Amitofo, Namo Amitofo. Likewise for Amitofo. Amitofo, 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 Amitofo. In this way, you keep the rhythm of the chanting with the dharma fish, and it creates a beautiful sound. For walking meditation, or for deathside or funeral processions, the handbell may be used. And when the handbell is used, it's punctuated at the a and to. So, Amitofo, 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 Amitofo. And you can punctuate the Nianfo that way. If you just wish for quiet, seated, subdued recitations of the Nianfo, or if you're in an area where audible recitation is not possible, if you're outside at work on a lunch break or something like that, you can use the Nianzhu, the prayer beads, the rosary. If you have one on your wrist, you can simply Amitofo, 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 Amitofo. Likewise this way. If you have the full, a full Nianzhu, likewise, and count your recitations just sitting outside. And so on. There are a total of 108 beads typically on the Nianzhu, and at that point you can continue your recitations that way. And so you see there are so many different methods just in how to recite, or in reciting. As to how to recite, you may sit in front of your shrine, your home altar, or at the temple. Most temples are open all the time. And there are various methods. If you find that sitting, your legs become painful and you cannot sit for a very long time, our temple cat Xiaofu decided to pay us a visit. It's Amitofo. And it's an interesting thing with animals. Animals are very, very important to us as Buddhists. And this is sort of moving aside. But the reason that they are so important to us is that those beings born into the animal realms need our help. As I have stated and oftentimes before to my disciples, when you see an animal, the first thing you should do is greet it with the Nianfo, Amitofo, and in this way, they will benefit from the hearing of the Nianfo while they are in the animal realms. And you are helping them with the merits to be reborn into the human birth so that they may hear the Dharma. So we should always cherish the animals and protect them. And we should help them through the recitation of Namo Amitofo. Amitofo. So, and we should honor the animals and protect them. And going back to the different forms of meditation and recitation of the Nianfo, you may sit in Chan style, quiet. You may place your chanting box if you have one, or in your mind. As you take your breath in, and this is not audible, this is in your mind, but in your mind you mi to fo, mi to fo, mi to fo, mi to fo. Each breathing in and out in the Chan style. For the audible, you, as I said, can sit before your altar and recite in any one of the various forms that we've discussed already. Sometimes, sometimes that becomes almost a habit. So to break that, we will stand up and do walking recitations of the Nianfo. At that time, a handbell or the muyu, the wooden fish, will come in handy. And you walk and take a step on the and to. So you make a walk, you say, Ami to fo, Ami to fo, Ami to fo, Ami to fo, Ami to fo. And hands together, looking down at the floor and concentrating on the Nianfo. Typically, you'll do circuits, if possible, around the altar, if not around the room and coming back before the altar. If you're in an outdoor setting, pick a very large open area for a circle and recite that way. Or make a long walk to and from. And in that way, you can recite the Nianfo while walking. Now, you don't have to have the handbell or the wooden fish or any other thing. You can silently or under your breath or if chanting aloud would disturb or create a conflict, then recite silently. If even that becomes difficult for you, or it becomes a habit, prostration reciting. This requires some effort, and it can cause physical discomfort and physical tiredness. And you don't want to recite in a non-fully awake state, unless, of course, you're going to bed and you're doing your recitations as you're going to sleep, which is a very good suggestion, and that is something else you should do. When you're laying in bed quietly in your mind, constantly reciting until you fall asleep. And let the first thing when you wake up, until you greet the Buddha at your altar in the morning. Good morning, Buddha. Amitofo. So there are various forms of Nianfo recitation. And there are some that you may think of that I have not given. All of them are equally beneficial. The point is that the Nianfo you make a part of your daily life. And I should actually say that your daily life should be focused around your recitations. Your life should not make time for the Nianfo. In your Nianfo recitations, then you may live your life. because our most important business is the recitation of the Buddha's holy name and making vows and having faith that we will be reborn into that pure land. So there are many forms of Nianfo recitation. Some people like to chant in Chinese. Some people chant in Japanese, Vietnamese, and so Korean. And there are similar methods for each. The form of Buddhism that we practice here and that I teach is of the Chinese Mahayana, the Chinese Pure Land school. So, of course, our recitations are in Chinese. But you don't have to speak the Nianfo in Chinese. If you feel called to the Japanese school, you can recite Namu Amidabu, 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 Namu Amidabu. That's perfectly fine. Namo Azidafen, Namo Azidafen, Namo Azidafen, Namo Azidafen. Vietnamese, however, Namu Amidabu, Namu Amidabu, Namu Amidabu. In Korean, it matters not. In English, I pay homage to Amitabha Buddha, Amitabha, 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 Amitabha. The point is that you are reciting the Nianfo, you're reciting the holy name that is above every name. So there are many established practices for Nianfo recitation, but it is up to you how you choose to recite. What matters is that you recite. What matters is that Amitofo, Namo Amitofo, is the first and last thing on your mind and on your lips every day of your life. Because this is at the heart of our practice. Amitofo. You do not need to sit for hours and hours and hours in silent Chan meditation. You do not need to recite hundreds of mantras. You do not need mudra upon mudra upon mudra of mudra. You don't need these things. What you need are three. Faith in Amitofo, in his vows. Practice, recitation of the Nianfo, and any other auxiliary practices that you may wish. Sutra chanting, mantra chanting, prostrations, anything that helps you in your practice of Nianfo recitation. And thirdly, vows to be reborn into the Pure Land. That is it. And at the heart, right mindfulness or right meditation is simply the recitation of Amitofo, recitation of the Nianfo. A practice that is simple to practice and hard to believe, as our Pure Land scholars have said throughout the centuries. But if through one recitation all past karmas are alleviated, and one recitation we can help animals, and one recitation we can secure our place in the rightly established state of those that will be reborn into the Pure Land. It is truly a wonderful, wonderful thing. So there are many different ways to practice the Nianfo recitation, and some of my Western disciples and people that have questions have asked me, well, is there one favored method over another? No. The favored method is that you practice. Practice is the most important. And faith, practice, and vows will see you through to the Pure Land, even with all of your bad past karma. The Pure Land school is truly the school of Buddhism that is for now, that is in the Dharma ending age, when all of the other forms and practices are so difficult for ordinary people. It is the Pure Land method, and the Pure Land method only, that Shakyamuni Buddha told us that he would preserve until the very end. So today, my friends, I urge you to Nianfo recitation. If you recite just 10 times today in the morning, Amitofo, 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 Amitofo. Just 10 simple recitations in the morning and at night. And when you can, on your drive to work, in your cooking of your dinner, in everything you do, in your mind, Amitofo, 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 Amitofo. When you're feeding your animals, Amitofo, Amitofo, Amitofo. Watching television with your wife, Amitofo, 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 in your mind. When you are taking in animals, Amitofo, 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 Amitofo. You see, practice of the Nianfo is most important. Indeed, it is the most important of our practice. So, on behalf of the Nianfo Society of Jacksonville, Florida, that I am happy to be the spiritual director and resident teacher, on behalf of myself, our disciples, and Xiaofu, Amitofo, Amitofo. Amitofo.